So this is pretty straightforward. You're basically figuring out how many numbers you have that are below you, adding those up, and then dividing by the total. That will give us a decimal version of our percentage. Then we multiply by 100 and just round normally. However, when we go in the reverse direction, it is actually a little bit more complicated. When we're actually taking a percentile and trying to find the data value. This is going to sound odd, but let's see. So we want to find the location or position of whatever data value is. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with whatever percentile they want us to find. That is going to be our value K. So if they want us to find the 20th percentile, we're using a K of 20. So we'll take that percentile that we're looking for, divide by 100. So that means what we're doing is we're taking our percentage and turning it into a decimal. And then what we'll do is we'll multiply it by n, which we've already used this before, which is the total number of data values. How many numbers are in our list of data values? Okay, well then we get a number. Sometimes it's a nice whole number, sometimes it's a decimal. It's actually easier if it's a decimal. So if L is a decimal, we'll actually do what's listed in here in Rule 2. If L is a decimal, then we're just going to automatically round it up no matter what decimal it is. So even if it's 12.1, we'll round it up to 13. And that means that we'll be looking for that value in the data set, the 13th value in the example I just listed. So if we had, let's say, 2.5 and that gets rounded up to 3, we'd be looking for the third data value in our list. Which again means be careful, just like before, our data really has to be in order. What gets more complicated is actually if L is a nice whole number. You would think that that would be easier, but it's not. It's not hard, it's just a little bit more complicated. If L is a nice whole number with no decimal, then what we'll do is we'll take that data value and the next one, take them and add them up and divide by 2, which means we'll average them. So that means take that data value and the next and average. This is what the formula is saying. So if our formula gave us, let's say, that L was the number 3, so what that would mean is you've got a whole number, you take the third data value in your list, and the next one, the fourth data value in your list, you'd take them and you'd average them. Just in case you see this, sometimes what they talk about is instead of just percentiles, they'll talk about quartiles, which are specific percentiles. For example, if we talk about Q1, that's what's called our first quartile. Q1 is a quartile. And when you think about Q1, specifically this is the first quartile, you should think about having like 1 quarter. Well, when you think of 1 quarter, like just money, it's 25 cents. Well, that's the same idea here, is that you've got 25% of your data behind you. So when we say Q1 or first quartile, we're talking about the percentile, the 25th percentile. So if I have the second quarter, meaning 2 quarters, which would be 50%, or 50 cents if you're talking about money. So the second quartile is that you're talking about the 50th percentile, your halfway mark. And there is another name for our halfway mark. The Q2 is also known as your median, your middle. And then of course we have our third quartile, Q3, which is 3 quarters, which means that you're looking at 75% of the data below you for the third quartile. It's just so that if you see Q instead of P, you don't panic. It's still the same idea. Okay, so we're going to do some problems with the same data set we just did a couple minutes ago, except for we're going to do the reverse. Instead of finding the percentile, they're going to give us a percentile and we'll try to find the data value. So let's go ahead and try. The first thing that we do, according to the formula, is we take our percentile, which is 80 in this first example, and we divide it by 100 to turn it into a decimal. That will give us 0.80. Then we have to take that value and multiply it times the total number of numbers we have, which in this problem is, we said 24. So 0.80 times 24. And remember, at this point, what really matters is what kind of number we're going to get as to how we're going to deal with this problem. So let's try the 0.80 times 24. And notice that we get 19.2. Remember, we talked about this, is actually if you get a decimal, it's actually easier. It means that we're going to automatically round it up to the next value, which would be the 20th value. That means we're going to go on our list and go find the 20th data value. So we'd start at the beginning, assuming that they're already in order. They need to be in order to do this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So the 20th data value, which is 61. So the 80th percentile, what data value do we use? We use the data value 61, and that would be our answer. Let's try another one. Let's look at the next one. The next one is the 75th percentile. Another name for that they could have asked this the same way would have been if they had asked for Q3. They mean the same thing. Third quarter means the 75th percentile. So we'd start out with the 75% that we're dealing with and divide it by 100, which will turn it into a decimal, which is 0.75, and we'll multiply it by however many numbers we have, which in this case is 24. And let's see what we get. So 24 times 0.75 is 18. Remember, if we get a whole number, it's not hard, it's just a little bit more complicated. We take the 18th number and the next one, the 19th number, and we'll take those two and we'll average. So let's go to our list. We should have those already listed out or figured out which one's the 18th and 19th number, and we'll take those two and we'll average them. Well, the 18th and 19th numbers are the 59 and the 61, so we'll take those two and average them. So 59 plus 61 divided by 2, that's how we average, will give us 60. So our 75th percentile, or third quartile, is the value 60. Let's try a couple more examples. Let's take a look at the next one. In the next one, again, we have a quartile, though, this time instead of a percentile, but it means the same thing. So remember that the first quartile is the same thing as the first 25%, so it's the 25th percentile. So we will take the 25, just like before, and divide by 100, which will turn that into a decimal of 0.25. And just like before, we'll multiply that by the total number of numbers, which is 24. And let's see what we get when we multiply the 0.25 times 24. We get a nice number, we get 6. Remember, when you get a nice number, it's actually more complicated. We'll take the 6th and the next one, the 7th number, and we need to average them. So we'd be going through our list, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we take the, just like before, the 6th and 7th number and average them. So we take the 41 plus the 43 divided by 2, which will give us a 42. So that's our 25th percentile, the number 42. And we're done.